That's right, folks. This is Acid Roots. I'm going to talk to you guys about the three. I'm going to talk to you guys about the three Nick Cannon disses that came out regarding Eminem, and we're just going to rank them and have like a brief discussion somewhat about it. So I would have to say, the Canceled Invitation song, which was the third diss, is probably the worst of the three. But to kind of talk about some of this more, Eminem dropped a new album called Music to Be Murdered By, and basically in that he did not mention Nick Cannon, and he called him out on the Fat Joe song, but he didn't even mention him on his newest album. And I figured, it would have been nice to have gotten maybe like 2 bars just to see what Eminem would think on that, but maybe he just didn't want to. 50 Cent had said that there was no point to Eminem responding, but then Nick Cannon, said 50 Cent was welcome to show up on Wild and Out also. So it was kind of, both of them were kind of challenged. Obi Trice sent a couple diss records Nick Cannon's way, but I don't think Obi Trice is on Nick Cannon's level, and that's kind of, I mean, they both have about the same amount of hits, but I still feel like Nick Cannon is probably a step or two ahead of Obi Trice, and that's kind of like, but then to say, Nick Cannon is not Eminem's level, it's just the Canceled Invitation is the worst of these three songs. It just has an Eminem, Eminem lyrics from back in the day when he was a teenager, which probably was like the 80s or early 90s, and that's in the hook, and it says, black women are bitches, but the song is just really not that good. I mean, the song structure, even if Nick Cannon's lyrics do have a bit of venom in them, I would still have to say that the song is just not terribly listenable. It's basically a pretty trashy song, but the other two are not bad. I mean, both of these are on Spotify. Pray for Him and then The Invitation are both on Spotify, and they've racked up about 6 digits, which is kind of, it's a lesser version of like what a normal celebrity would get, but they're not horrible songs. And that's the thing. When I listen to most diss records, I usually take it not by whether or not they won the battle, but just how it goes as a song. And I think that's important. When I listen to a song like Hit 'Em Up by Tupac, it, whether or not Biggie would have actually had the better song from Tupac compared to Tupac, I still think that the Hit 'Em Up is a good song in its own right, because I think Biggie probably is the better lyricist than Tupac. But that's just kind of the thing is, I looked at it and I said, well, The Invitation is not the worst thing that you can do when it comes to listening to a rap song or a diss song. It just is not something Eminem needs to check for. And Pray for Him is probably a hair or two worse, but it's still decent car music. And I think that's just kind of the situation. When I reviewed Rap Devil last year and I did that whole think over thing that I did concerning Eminem and MGK, I mean, I still listen to Rap Devil, even though I said that Kill Shot is probably the better song. Um, I still listen to Rap Devil that much more. That's the thing. It's easier song to go by. I think it carries over on the rock charts. It just has a more sleek and kind of gritty feel to it that still works. There's a lot of venom to it, but to talk about The Invitation, Nick Cannon was the only person I was really checking for on these records, and I know Nick Cannon can flow. I mean, it seemed like he was able to. I was kind of hoping that he would have dropped another verse on Invitation just to kind of seal the deal, and he definitely should have. I mean, if you're going to do a posse cut, you need to have 2 verses on there just to make sure that we know that it's you who's the best. I think maybe Nick was just kind of sailing through that song. He should have, I mean, obviously there were like 3 or 4 of those guys, but Nick Cannon needed to bring home the bacon and kind of say, I'm the head honcho out of all these guys. I mean, the other guys, they might have had like a line here or there, something like that, just talking. I don't remember, like, they've had digs at Kim, talking about they'll get Kim, and, um, things like that. They could have her strung out on Coke and soda or something, but, um, I mean, obviously, Eminem is done with Kim. That's just kind of yeah. I just think Nick Cannon should have had two verses on the invitation. If he would have, and it probably would have been that much more venomous. I think he probably needed to slash one of the rappers that was on that song, because I think there were three of them. I think there was either 4 or 5 verses on the invitation. Probably needed to slash one of those guys, keep 3 of them on there and 2 Nick Cannon verses, and we might have had something. I just kind of felt like the venom in the invitation was not anything of like a kill shot worthy. I mean, Machine Gun Kelly did it, and that was basically the way it went. I mean, it was an effective song. People paid attention, and I feel like, probably Nick Cannon is not too far off from Machine Gun Kelly's level. I mean, MGK can actually chart and get songs in the millions, but it's within range of that. I think they're within shouting distance of each other. So, but the other song, "Pray for Him," was worse. That's the thing. That was the worst of the two. The way that the song worked was, I mean, once again, the posse idea to it, I liked the idea behind it, but it just felt kind of lackluster. I mean, it just seemed like most of these guys are maybe getting like one decent dig in their whole verse. Some of the verses were shorter, but it seems like they'd get a dig or something like that. But I mean, that's pretty much what you could expect from each one of the other guys that showed up on the song. I feel like even if these guys can get a decent dig at Eminem, I think Eminem could probably get like multiple digs within like 1 or 2 bars. And that's just kind of the situation. He could probably rhyme syllables and have jokes in the same bars and just kind of make that happen, put them to shame if we were to, humor the idea of Eminem responding. And that just kind of happens to be the thing. I mean, Nick Cannon is the best of these guys on here, but um, I mean, I feel like his verse was better on "Pray for Him," but his flow was better on "The Invitation," and that was kind of the way it went. I mean, the song was just quicker. I mean, that's the thing. The song was just quicker for "The Invitation." It really felt like a more slippery song for that sort of thing, but it just was a wasted opportunity just because Nick Cannon just did not have enough digs at Eminem. I mean, he really needed to. He couldn't just rely on those guys to kind of have their, fuck this rap shit, I'll shoot you type shit. I mean, it needed to be within the essence of that sort of thing. It was just kind of, you know, that's kind of a cop out in the diss format in some cases, but um, so I would just have to say, I mean, the the "Pray for Him" song was more slower, but I mean, Nick Cannon did have the bars on that song, but it just was not as interesting a song. I mean, that one, it showed on Spotify that it was less popular, so it just felt like he kind of lost the venom. I mean, Nick Cannon didn't lose the lyric side of it, but it was just a less interesting song. So that's just kind of the thing. And, a distant third is obviously "Canceled Invitation." I mean, that one was, even if Nick Cannon's lyrics were somewhat sharp in that, I would still have to say it's not anything that Eminem needs to lose sleep over. So those are the 3 disses. I would just have to say the best one for people who are still, if you're curious or you just want like some sort of retrospective on it, I would just have to say, probably the first song is the best one. But to me, it seemed like Nick Cannon needed to be on that song more. I mean, he went to the trouble of getting Suge Knight from Death Row and having him do an intro and an outro, and then having some other rappers on there, but he just needed to bring it home. I mean, I've seen Posse songs before. If you're going to do that, you need to have 2 verses just to prove that you're able to do it, and that's kind of the thing. Maybe if he would have had that second verse, it might have had more venom to it, but Just thoughts.